Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. I never imagined a day at work would lead me straight into the kind of betrayal that makes your chest tighten and your stomach churn. My name is Oliver, and I've been married to Clara for nearly 10 years. We have a small apartment in Manchester, our routines, our little rituals, the kind of life that feels secure, maybe even boring, but safe. I always thought safety was enough. I was wrong. That Tuesday started like any other. I left work early, hoping to surprise Clara with lunch. She always loved when I brought sandwiches from that little deli down the street, the one with the garlic bread that made her laugh no matter how bad her day was. I parked, grabbed the bag, and felt a small flicker of anticipation. I was looking forward to just seeing her smile. I didn't know that smile would be the last honest one I'd see from her for a long time. I walked through the front door, calling out softly, "Clara? I'm home early." Nothing. I shrugged, thinking she might be in the kitchen or maybe taking a nap. Then I heard the faint sound of running water from the bathroom. My brow furrowed. She usually locks the bathroom if she's in there. And yet, the door was ajar, steam curling around the edges. Curiosity nudged me closer, but what I saw stopped me cold. There, in our bathtub, was Clara. And next to her, impossibly, was Derek, our neighbor. I froze mid-step, my brain refusing to process the scene. Their eyes met mine, and the instant recognition, the undeniable guilt, hit me harder than any punch ever could. For a moment, I just stood there, numb. My hand went to the door, and without thinking, I pushed it shut, locked it. The sound of the click echoed like a verdict. Clara opened her mouth, probably to explain, to lie, to justify, but I didn't give her the chance. I reached for my phone. I didn't call a friend. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I called Marissa, Derek's wife. Our families were close. She answered after a single ring, her voice bright, unsuspecting. "Hey, Marissa. It's Oliver. Listen, come over. Now, there's something you need to see." The silence on the other end told me everything. She understood. She knew. That pause, just a few seconds, was heavier than anything I'd felt in years. I hung up and waited, pacing the apartment, stomach in knots. I kept thinking, how did it come to this? Clara and I had our arguments, yes, but I never imagined this level of betrayal. I tried to replay every moment over the past few months in my head. Those evenings she'd suddenly claim she was tired. Those nights she said she had a headache. The way she'd avoid my touch. The little half-smiles that didn't reach her eyes. Signs, all of them, now screaming in my mind, and I'd been too blind, too trusting to notice. I could hear Marissa's car pull up before I even opened the door. The sound of her steps, hurried, determined, confirmed what I already knew. Clara came out of the bathroom, a towel clutched around her, her hair wet and clinging, her face pale with guilt or fear. I couldn't tell which. Derek followed, hastily grabbing a robe, looking every bit as guilty as I expected. Marissa stepped inside, her eyes scanning the scene. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just looked. And in that moment, the apartment felt smaller, tighter, like the air itself was constricting me. I saw something in her gaze that I hadn't anticipated. That sharp, clear-eyed disbelief mixed with fury. And I realized, with a sinking feeling, that while I had been blindsided, Marissa was seeing the truth in real time. Clara opened her mouth, trying to say something. Derek stammered. I didn't wait. I stepped forward, my voice calm, measured, slicing through the tension like a knife. "Marissa, look, everything you need to see is right here." The room was silent except for the drip of water from the bathtub. Derek swallowed. Clara's towel slipped slightly as she shifted. Marissa's eyes locked onto mine, then flicked to the scene in front of her. I could see her mind racing, trying to process years of trust crumbling in a single moment. I didn't know if it was relief or vindication in her expression, but I realized something essential. Clarity is cruel, but sometimes it's necessary. There's no pretending after this, no half measures, no salvageable illusions. The betrayal had taken root, and the only option left was confrontation and truth. I stepped back slightly, giving Marissa the space to take in the reality. Clara's lips moved again, but I silenced her with a glance. Not out of cruelty but necessity. Let her see the consequences of her choices, unmediated, unsoftened. It wasn't just about the act itself. It was the cumulative weight of the lies, the secrecy, the casual disregard for everything we'd shared. It was years of quiet neglect, of small deceits, now laid bare in a single irrevocable moment. And I could see, just in her posture, in her faltering gaze, that the consequences had finally landed. Marissa's hands curled into fists at her sides, her face pale but resolute. Derek shrank back slightly, as if expecting some sudden, explosive reaction from me. I didn't give it. I didn't need to. The silence said everything. Marissa took a slow, steady step forward, her eyes never leaving Clara. "I can't believe this," she said quietly, but the strength in her voice made it impossible for either of them to dismiss. Derek tried to speak, but she silenced him with a single, icy glance. The air between us felt taut, heavy with tension, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. Clara's face twisted, a mixture of guilt and defiance. "Oliver, she began, but I cut her off with a calm that surprised even me. "There's nothing left to say, Clara. You made your choice. Everyone else can see it now." Marissa's expression softened slightly. Not for Clara, not for Derek, but for me. I realized in that instant that her presence wasn't about anger. It was about validation. Finally, someone else could see the truth without lies, without excuses. And strangely, that clarity made my chest feel lighter, even though the sting of betrayal was still sharp. Derek muttered something under his breath, but Marissa's sharp, "Excuse me?" cut him off immediately. He froze, suddenly aware that his usual arrogance and bravado had no place here. I felt a pang of satisfaction, not from cruelty, but from justice. Seeing the discomfort on their faces, knowing that this moment couldn't be unmade, gave me a strange sense of peace. Clara's gaze shifted to Marissa, then to me, desperation flickering across her features. I didn't think," she trailed off, the excuses evaporating under the weight of reality. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The silence itself was louder than any argument I could have made. Marissa turned fully to me, her eyes softening just a fraction. "You did the right thing," she said, quietly but firmly. I nodded, letting her words sink in. I didn't feel triumphant, didn't feel victorious. I felt unburdened. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I could breathe without carrying the weight of deception. Clara stumbled back, wrapping the towel tighter around her shoulders. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered, almost inaudible. I realized then that intent didn't matter anymore. The outcome was what counted. Years of trust had been shattered in minutes, and the fragility of promises, of what we once called love, had been exposed for what it truly was. Marissa's hand found mine, briefly, a gesture of solidarity, reassurance. I felt a wave of gratitude, not for what had happened, but for the unwavering clarity it had provided. Betrayal is a strange thing. It devastates, it wounds, it shatters illusions. But it also illuminates, cutting through the fog of denial, exposing what was always there but too painful to see. I stepped back, letting them absorb the consequences of their actions. Derek muttered a weak apology, but neither Marissa nor I acknowledged it. Apologies weren't enough. They couldn't undo the choices, couldn't rewrite the history that had led us to this moment. Clara slumped against the wall, the color draining from her face. The defiance that had been there moments before was gone, replaced by something smaller, quieter, shame, perhaps, or fear, or both. And in that silence, I felt a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. Life doesn't wait for us to be ready, doesn't pause for comfort or convenience. It confronts us, relentlessly, and demands honesty, even when it hurts. I looked at Marissa, and then at Clara, and realized something important. The real measure of strength isn't in revenge, isn't in anger, isn't in shouting or retribution. It's in restraint, in clarity, in choosing to see things as they are and acting with integrity, even when every fiber of your being wants to explode. Clara's lips trembled, but no words came. Derek stood awkwardly, the illusion of control stripped away. Marissa's gaze lingered on me a moment longer before she nodded. A small, decisive gesture. And just like that, the moment settled. The storm had passed. But the debris, trust shattered, innocence lost, loyalty betrayed, remained. I stepped toward the door, and Marissa stayed beside me, not needing to speak. We didn't rush, didn't dramatize. We simply walked, leaving the apartment heavy with consequences and truth. Outside, the air was crisp, clean, and bracing. I felt a strange sense of renewal, as though the weight that had been pressing down on me for months had finally lifted. That night, I didn't dwell on anger or revenge. I didn't fantasize about what could have been or what should have happened. I let myself simply be present, let myself process the reality without distortion. Betrayal is never clean, never fair, but it can be clarifying if you allow it to be. Marissa and I parted ways outside the apartment. I watched her walk back to her car, her presence a reminder that loyalty and truth still exist in the world, even when the ones closest to us fail. And as I turned toward my own apartment, empty now in ways I hadn't realized before, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Hope that life, even after heartbreak, can still be lived with integrity. Hope that people who choose loyalty and honesty will find clarity, if not comfort, in the aftermath. And hope that even the deepest betrayals can teach us who we are and what we will never tolerate again. Because in the end, what matters isn't vengeance, isn't drama, isn't screaming or pleading. What matters is truth. And sometimes the hardest part of loving someone is knowing when to step back, to let reality speak for itself, and to let clarity guide your next move.